That is
Can,
Yes, ma'am.
can I ask? So,
Sure.
what are some of the if someone was looking to establish some relationships, and what type of businesses and what kind of opportunities are
and
there?
on the continent, your business opportunities are unlimited. I mean, you name it, it's needed. But probably if I was to actually have people focus on any area at all, it would be the power, providing power, solar, any type of
utility.
yeah, but no, but just providing power.
Yeah.
Because see, right now, for example, I'll give you an example. We just been invited by the Zambian government to put together a delegation to go to Zambia to help them develop their open markets, because they have these open markets where people are selling goods, but there literally is no power grid or infrastructure to support them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and look at setting up solar paneling, maybe some wind technology that will give them power they need, and then looking at bringing in refrigeration and other things that they need to help their food stay edible for longer periods of time, but also enhance the environment in which they are actually trying to sell their goods. So we're working on that project right now. Literally anything that's associated with power or providing power or telecommunications even is needed. Business office supplies needed.
Wow.
Anyone who has any background in developing infrastructure, whether it's airport infrastructure, railroad infrastructure, port infrastructure, roads, needed. They have a very sincere interest in anything that is made in America. Okay, clothing, food, clothing. They love American goods because they see them as very high quality, and they will wear a shirt that's made in America just like we would wear something that was made in France.
Right.
The African people are very much into it. The other thing you need to know about the continent is that there are a lot of communities here in Southern California that are basically centered around the people that come from the continent. So there's a Ghana association, there's an association of people from Ethiopia, there's an association of people from Tanzania, there's Nigeria. They're here, from Cameroon, live in Southern California, but they formed groups, and they interact with each other, but they have also very strong interest in interacting with African Americans who are sensitive to the continent. So you don't come in there with a European attitude.
Right.
And if you don't do that, you're going to do fine. But believe me, these are very intelligent people.
Very good.
And they know they can read you real good, and they appreciate when you're able to read them.
Alfonso, you didn't mention service industry.
No, it's
in terms
hospitality.
Of,
yes, very much so. One of the things that they like African American food. Okay. So, but anybody that can, and for that matter, they love. If you can go in and develop a hotel or something like that, that type of stuff that type of enterprise is needed there as well.
And what in relation to health, healthcare?
Yeah,
healthcare,
health. They are very interested in developing or improving the healthcare infrastructure, particularly in rural areas. Anyone who can go in and put in like a clinic in a village setting. That is self-sustaining. That is very much needed.
My interest is the health
right.
area.
Okay, that would be perfect.
Mental health as well as.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So literally, what you could do is you could go to a country, and we form an association with the Minister for Health there, and talk to them about what we can do to link up their major hospital with their rural system, and actually help improve their overall healthcare infrastructure and their network. That's very much needed on the continent, right?
And actually, I'm going to step in right now so we can introduce Denise. Denise has, she's like most entrepreneurs.
Before we introduce Denise, I'm sure Denise has some great things she wants to share, so we don't want to miss any of that. Why don't we go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. We'll talk to Denise and talk some more about this wonderful set of opportunities we have in front of us. So, again, our phone number is 323-293-3375. That's 323-293-3375. Please give us a call here on the Business Zone. And again, this is Gilbert Buchanan, the small business paramedic, along with my co-host,
Crystal Mitchell.
And we've got some great stuff for you today. So let's take a break.
So something happened in West Africa is like that
Right.
compared to the rest of the continent.
Okay, so we are back. You're back and tuned into the Business Zone. We're having a really lively conversation about doing business in South Africa. I'm going to introduce our other guest because she also has some contributions to this conversation. She's actually venturing into this area to expand her business. So Denise, and let me first, before I introduce Denise, Denise is a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, and we participate in a morning spiritual call. And we've been developing and growing our relationship, and we're also part of a book club. And we're reading a book and helping each other expand our where we are and scale our businesses to that next level. And we're doing it collaboratively together and encouraging and supporting one another. So when I told Denise that about the radio show, and I'd love to have her on because she had just gotten back from South Africa. Her endeavors have been taking place in South Africa, and I'm going to read a little bit about her bio shortly. But one of the things I had mentioned to Denise that one of our very first show, I blasted it, boosted the show on Facebook. And one of the unique things about it was we got about just under 15,000 reaches, and
which is phenomenal.
A great portion of those were from Africa.
Right.
And I was reading to her the countries that had actually tuned in to the show and watched the show, and the age group and the analytics that came with that was ages between the 18 and 34, and it was quite impressive. And then I was speaking to a friend of mine that's African, and they were saying because they've gone off to school, they've been educated in London and Great Britain and America, and now they're looking for opportunities to help their country as well as themselves. And so they're looking to us as being that source to help them move that forward. So Denise, I told her I'd love to have her on the show. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Denise. Denise is a community activist, and she's a marriage family therapist intern. And she'll tell you more about that. She's the founding executive director of the Village Mindful Wellness Counseling Center at the Village Health Foundation of Los Angeles. It's a based alternative community acupunctural health clinic. And are you in Lamert, or you were in Lamert?
Actually, we're still in Koreatown.
Oh, they're in Koreatown. And she earned her MA in clinical psychology with a concentration in applied community psychology and a BS in political science from Spelman College. Denise currently manages the VMWC program in the Los Angeles Department of Mental Health program, and these programs at the VHF are dedicated to making holistic health modalities available to underserved communities. So I would assume that is why you just basically what Al just talked about, that the opportunities for mental health and health care in Africa, is that where you're going with this?
Yes, that as well as chronic disease prevention.
Okay.
So just to really be grateful for this forum. Because I've been dibbling and dabbling in different business ventures for the last 30 years, and they say that nothing's a failure, and that is where we fall short, I think, sometimes as African people, is that we fall short we try something that doesn't work, we don't have the support, and we don't do a business plan.
Right,
so Crystal
exactly.
talks about that in her services. So I'm fortunate to be mentored by amazing elders. The Village Health Foundation founder and executive director is Jewel Tice Williams, has been in business for over 40 years. She actually owned a nightclub and has a documentary that was just released, and she's had the clinic for 15 years. And this clinic has served the community on a donation basis, but the model is changing as a result of different things. So my component has been the counseling component, because we know what our community has and is dealing with regarding post-traumatic slave syndrome and other things in our community that get swept under the rug.
I like that. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Love it.
Yeah, Dr. Joyce.
Oh, you have not heard that
Larry.
video?
Never
powerful.
heard of it.
Yes.
Her name is
So
Dr. Joy DeGruy,
Yeah.
DeGruy.
Thank God for that video.
Oh,
Yes.
my God. And
So
she talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome.
And
you
that
have
is so
to watch
real.
it.
That is
So
so
we
real.
come into the gate
Yeah.
with a lot of
On their
luggage
shoulders.
before we
Oh, yeah.
even step out into the world. So the other work that I've done, and the reason that I ended up venturing into this field was because I work with our judicially challenged community, youth, and I work with youth that are in the foster care system, knowing that they needed more than just jobs or school. So my role was to help them get enrolled and stay in school and graduate from school. But with the trauma that they had experienced and the post-traumatic slave syndrome that they experienced, it's going to come out one way or the other. So I decided to go back to school at 50. I'll be celebrating my 57th birthday.
Congratulations.
So as I stated, the millennium population is a population that I'm passionate with because I have two sons, one that's 31 and another that's 29.
I cannot believe that.
Health is wealth. Health is wealth. Again, I have two mentors, both 77 and 191. So I'll talk a little about them, and that's so important to have a mentorship and a team behind you. So I worked in community for the last 20 years with Community Bill, a very well-known community organization, and knowing that I needed to go back to do this other piece and develop a program that could be an integrated approach. I'm a certified Kundalini yoga instructor, and my idea is to integrate the approach of talk therapy with being able to get whatever it is that we need, because we need options, different options in our community. We know that because how there's a stigma with mental health, and we want to just really educate the community. So our particular agency is under the Village Health Foundation, and again, being gifted with having a mentor that has a place that I can start, because I was in school and starting the clinic doing it both. So we have interns that work, that go out into the community, that work in organizations that may need mental health services that can't afford. So we do a sliding scale so everyone is welcome to come.
Yeah.
And the work that I'm doing with South Africa, I went in March. It was my first trip. I had been to Ghana before. And as a result of my relationship with Holman United Methodist Church, Reverend Judy and Reverend Sauls that are from South Africa was connected to family. So now I have family. As you know, when you go, you have family.
Right.
So what made you decide to go to South Africa?
Well, my mentor, this 91, has two schools in Durban. And so wanted to really begin to work with her to continue. She's in complete health, but is experiencing dementia. So I'm galvanizing youth that can come in and pass the torch, because that's another thing I feel in our community, the torch doesn't get passed.
That's right.
It gets buried, it gets buried. So let's pass
Just like the elevator doesn't get sent back down, when someone in our community has made it and they take that elevator up to the top floor where now they're big, they don't send it back down.
And because of the work that I've done with young people, helping them get into college and graduate, they're recircling back around. They can't find work, they're frustrated. So really wanted to introduce them to the continent. So I'm developing with Ashley Sauls, who's Pastor Sauls' nephew, that's now my nephew, a program called South LA to South Africa, and he wants to bring young people from South Africa to South LA and do an cultural exchange program that has 5 pillars: leadership and development, academics, enrichment, spiritual empowerment and engagement, cultural awareness and exchange, and leadership development. So to really begin to work and empower them to do the work. So that's a 2-year project, and my main focus has been to really be engaged and integrated with to understand the culture. So I was able to do work when I went in March, and I'm going back to do work with the Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center, where I'll spend a week there with the women and, again, really get engaged, working with community, doing classes, teaching. I'm going to be going back with another group that's going to be participating in a conference called Black Portraits, and it's sponsored by NYU and Columbia. So other people that will be going will be participating in the work that I'm doing. So I'm actually bringing something opposed to coming. What I have everything to offer, but how can we partner and work together? How can we work together and not, I'm this American and I have everything and you have nothing to offer. And that was one of the things that was expressed several times by people in community that I had met and encountered.
That's the attitude they had.
Yeah, that I have everything and you have nothing, which we know that's not the case, as you expressed, Al.
So you have delegates. How many delegates are you actually interacting with in Africa, or individuals that are in Africa that are wanting to do business, countries?
We're working with all the African consulates here in Southern California.
Okay.
There's about 12 of them here.
Okay.
And so we have a relationship with all of them. So, and all of them, for the most part, have an interest in promoting their nation as a business, as a place for business opportunities. The biggest problem we have with most of them is educating them and teach them how to use their consulate office to promote their country as a business location, not just a tourism location.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because sometimes they get here and they start thinking about tourism and they're processing visas, and they're not thinking about the fact that they could actually represent their country's interest. I'll give you an example of a successful enterprise that gives you an example of what we're talking about. The former Consul General of Ethiopia helped us develop a delegation that went to Addis. We were there for about a week. You maybe heard of a lady named Aniva. Probably never heard
Yeah,
of Aniva.
she did.
Okay,
Did
well,
she have
Aniva
a
was part of our
gift shop
delegation.
in Lamert, right?
Well, she
Gift shop.
was
Beautiful
part of our
clothing.
delegation.
Okay.
She went there with us because we were promoting her designs, and she was looking for someone in Ethiopia who could manufacture her designs. When we went there as a guest of the government, but we also went there with support of the embassy in Ethiopia. We actually did a fashion show at the American Embassy in Addis, where we featured her. And my children were in the fashion show. They were much younger then.
Okay.
And then we hooked her up with a textile manufacturer. And as a result of that contract, she had a manufacturer who was actually manufacturing her designs in Africa, and she then would have shipped here and sold here. Okay.
Wow.
So those are the kind of business opportunities that we can take advantage of, because the people on the continent want to do business with African Americans, and that type of business, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And I remember that Aniva did an excellent job representing, as she always does, representing
Where is she?
herself.
Is she still in Los Angeles?
I don't know. I don't know where she is now.
Because
Yeah, I
she
don't
used
know
to be
either.
in Lamert
She used to be
Park,
right in
and I
Lamert
know
for a while, yeah, but
she
she was doing fashion shows all over the place. But she did a fashion show in Ethiopia. What she actually did was she recruited local Ethiopian women
Which
to
is good.
actually wear her goods.
That's good.
Yeah, right. And she actually even hired a woman to actually braid the hair of my children, and also of the other women who were participating.
they would be-
So she did what African Americans should do.
Right, and that's the engagement piece.
That's the engagement
because
piece.
that was what
Right.
I did in terms of contacting people that had
Right.
been and lived on the
Right.
continent. I have it's a fashion designer that's in Chicago now, and
Right.
he was designing for Mandela when he was there,
Got it.
and he wants to do a reunion
Right.
to take people over, but again, really engaging and
Right.
not coming with I have this attitude that I have everything.
Right.
So my idea was to really connect with people and do really an assessment.
Right.
What is needed, and how can I learn from, and we learn together, and we
Exactly.
collaborate,
Yeah.
and we work together, and then begin to bring people, because my mentor that has taken probably over 3,000 people back and forth to Africa, she has a foundation, Dr. Betty Yates Foundation, and she has 2 schools in Durban
Yeah.
where she has been supporting. So
Yeah.
just amazing work that I want to be supportive of and continue, but know what areas and do my research first, and wanting to take people to do that.
Yeah, and that's an example of what we call cooperative economics, and it's like that's how we do things. That's how we do business. But because of the syndrome, we've lost sight of who we are.
Exactly.
Right.
And but going back to the continent helps us to reestablish those relationships.
And we help each other.
Yeah, we
because
help
we
each
know
other.
there are a lot of things that are going on in the continent
Right.
too that need to be balanced out
Yes.
in,
Yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
a lot of things.
And they
But-
see us as a resource to help with it.
Exactly. But
That's
going
great.
in with humility. I want to just share something. Ashley Sauls, who is called the Bible Coach, and he does work, and he is, I think, 26, so he's part of that generation, so being able to help with that. He basically would welcome foreign business, but detest the arrogance and the supremacy that's attached with that when some of us come over to
Right.
do business.
Yeah.
In many circles, we feel that it's a different form of slavery. This is what he shared with me, that the people feel there's a different form of slavery when you come with this arrogance, like,
Yeah.
I have this and you don't have anything to offer.
Yeah.
The advantage, obviously, is the strength of our currency. The strength of the currency and being able to do that, but it's welcome.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be able to work with him. He's connected me to community, and I'm grassroots.
Yeah.
So really, they're wanting to see what resources that I can bring, and we can work together and share.
Yeah.
So that's
what
the
are
work.
some of the things? So you're saying there are 12 different chambers here. So
No, the consulates.
consulate is here. Are
The
they,
consular corps has a consul general's office for most of the world. And of those, I think it's around 8 to 12 of them are actually African consul generals. And so they essentially are here to represent that specific nation.
Okay.
Okay.
So are there avenues where some of that exchange can take place
Yes.
here on the U.S. soil?
Yes.
So when we go over there,
Right.
you are a little bit more acclimated, and
Yeah.
you see them as just like yourself,
Yeah.
with the same challenges that we may have, but bridging a gap between
Right.
the brethren, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
so that we can eliminate that, or at least minimize that type of attitude when we get over there, because you're interacting with them like everybody else. I mean,
Right.
they're no different than we are. We just happen to be in the U.S. and they happen to be from from the continent that we were supposed to be from.
But again,
Now-
what
now
Al
let-
mentioned was actually people need to go there because some people
Yeah.
feel like, oh, everybody's living in huts.
Right.
But if anybody that's been to South Africa know
Yeah.
that that's not
That's
the case.
no.
All
Yeah.
right.
Let
yeah.
me ask this question. Do you think it would, well, I'm sure it would be useful for us to have workshops to
Yeah.
prepare people before they
Absolutely.
go?
Yeah, and in fact, one of the things that I was doing was I was taking people on trade missions to Africa, and I stopped.
Right.
And the reason I stopped was because I recognized that the people didn't understand the opportunity that
Right,
existed.
right.
So what I did was I said to myself, okay, what I need to do is I need to prepare people in advance before
Right.
they go.
Right.
And they need to actually meet Africans here in the U.S. We
Right.
can talk to them about Africa,
Right.
and not meet somebody from the Department of Commerce who would talk to them about Africa. And for example, I'll give you this is a funny story, but
Right.
it's real. At one of our conferences, one of our brothers from Africa, when he came to the U.S., he said it made him laugh because somebody asked him if he would like to go with them to see the zoo.
Oh,
Oh, no.
Lord.
Oh, no.
And he laughed. He said, "With the zoo." He said, "I'm surrounded by I'm surrounded by this every day.
That is
I've learned to live
unbelievable.
with the animals, and
Oh,
they're not
my.
caged up. And so, all right. And so he said, "No, I'm not interested in going to the zoo." He said, "I want to do something else." But it was funny to him, and it made everybody laugh. Because I've actually been in environments in the continent where I could appreciate exactly what he was saying. Because
Yeah.
it's one thing to see an animal in the zoo,
Right.
another to see them in the wild, free,
right.
and you know that you got to keep your distance, and,
Right,
and you
exactly.
got to respect.
It's one of those innocent level
Yeah.
of ignorance.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But
It's-
yeah,
Because you only know it
Yeah.
from what you see on
Yeah.
television.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
and that's our
Yeah.
problem. So what we've got to do as a people is we have to reacquaint ourselves
Yes.
with our cousins and our family in Africa.
Yeah.
Right.
And the best experience I have is when I take African Americans there, and they get off the plane and they start seeing the African culture in its varied aspects. I mean, you have people who live in villages, but you also have people who live in mansions.
Yeah.
Okay, all in the same environment. In fact, the only place that I've been to in my life where I met a man who had a 6-story mansion with an elevator was in Uganda. All right? Okay, and he's just one example of the level of wealth that exists on the
Right,
continent and people who have that type of money.
And actually, a way to do that, I love foreign film, and so I watch a lot of the Nigerian and the Ghanaian and the film and South African. I watch Indian movies and you do that on Hulu and Netflix, and it's English subtitles if you can't understand the language, and it gives you a different impression. So there was a show that I watched recently, and it was of 5 young women, and it reminded me of a Sex in the City.
That was the South African film.
Yeah, was it
I
South?
saw it.
No, they actually were from
No, it was Nigeria.
Nigeria,
Nigeria.
and so
I
they
saw
had
that
been
one.
living
Yeah.
all over the continent, right?
Yes.
And then they came back then they came home because they came home to be with their families, and when they came home, sorry, here, let me get this. When they came home, now they were.
I need to talk to you later.
When they came home,
call you in about
they
3 hours.
now were recognizing that the water level, the lights go out, the things that they weren't dealing with in the U.S. or in London or Great Britain or wherever they happened to be living, now all of a sudden they were living there, right? And the power outage. And it's really a cute show because it really showed their life, and then how they interacted with the men, how the men were different than the men in America,
Exactly.
and that kind of stuff. So I was dying. I did like a binge night one night to watch them, and I can't even remember the name of it, but I believe it was on Netflix that I saw it.
And now with the advent of the internet and Skype and WhatsApp, I mean, it's like you're next door, because I talk to my contacts. At least we have a weekly meeting. And it's just so accessible. Again, the exchange program that we'll do will start to connect the young people so they can begin to develop a relationship. So when they go, they would develop a relationship and can see some things and do some things. So I'm excited.
Now, the Obama administration has set up a program, entrepreneur program for Africans in the continent to prepare them to do business internationally. So it's possible that you might want to look in how you can hook up with that program, because he'll help you find Africans through the program there that can maybe be able to come this way. But I'm trying to talk to Karen Bass about establishing a similar program for entrepreneurs here in the U.S. to prepare them to go to the continent.
Okay.
So
That would be
That sounds
great.
like, yeah.
yeah, that's the kind of thing that we need to be bugging our elected officials about.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a girlfriend that grew up, was born and was there until she was 19 in South Africa. But her whole entire family lives in South Africa, in Johannesburg, I believe. Joburg, yeah. And her mom, in fact, her mom just left and went back. And I've known her and her husband, my girlfriend and her husband for close to 20-something years now. And when he first brought her from South Africa, he and I worked together, and she's a beautiful woman. So when he got here, he had to go out of town. He's like, okay, I'm turning her over to you. You are to keep her away from any of these American men here until I get back. And so we developed a friendship, but they go back every year. Her son, who is now 11, I guess, and he has been in South Africa as much as he's been here in L.A. They live in Orange County, Irvine. But her husband has been doing business out of the country for years. I mean, he had a nightclub. In fact, he met her in London. But he was in South Africa, and he had a club there, so he knew a friend of hers, and they met, though, in London. And then they get connected, and then she went back and forth, and they've been go back and forth home. And so right now, he's in Dubai, so he's been doing business in Dubai and all over Malaysia. He's got an amazing lucrative deal that's going on with them, with all those countries over there. So we have really limited ourselves. But years ago, there was a contingency of people that went to Africa all the time.
Yes.
So what happened to that? They were all wanting, I guess maybe that was when we were all feeling like we feel now, that maybe that might be our next home.
Recycle, yes.
So I need to know these people, right? So maybe that was what was going on during that time. It felt like a kinship. I need to know these people. And so they were going all the time. But then you didn't hear as much in latter years that people were going to the continent.
Well, I'm fortunate because one of my best friends moved there, and she's working with an organization that is developing schools. The founder is from Nigeria, and his wife is from South Africa. And so it gives me the flexibility to have somewhere to stay, so I can freely move around. So I'm really fortunate with that. But his idea is to open 100 schools on the continent over 10 years. So she's helping and assisting with that. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's logistics and
logistics.
That matters.
I know for my birthday this year, and I've mentioned this on the show before, and friends of mine know this. For my birthday, that's what I gifted myself, was my DNA that done by Ancestry.com. I needed to know what was happening here in America, but it also let me know from where on the continent that my ancestors, my DNA genes kind of floated around. So mine is Nigeria and Cameroon and actually, I'm all over the place. So, and I told my sister, I said, okay, here's the deal. If I got to leave because of whoever's going to become president, I got some relatives that I am going to go hook up with.
Because again, you become family.
Yeah, I'm going to have some family on, and I'm going to go back to the continent, and I'll stay over there until it gets normal back over here again. But at least I know where I can go.
Now, before we go to the next break, I wanted to share some things also with both of you regarding our system,
Right.
the system that Crystal and I are promoting with small businesses, and it's called Small Biz Pro, which is just a postcard with some of the services. And what it does, it helps small businesses with record keeping. You can manage your records right at your fingertips. It also assists with your back office management. So when you have your invoices come in and all of those things, you can use a system to pretty much manage that. It also assists you with free bids and procurement opportunities. So what we have in the system is we have a number of different bids and procurement opportunities. You can just log right in, and you don't have to go to different websites to find these opportunities right here. Right in the system. So whether it's the County of Los Angeles, the SBA, federal opportunities, LA Unified School District, LA Metro, all of those, it's right there.
Right.
And it's free.
Yeah.
We've got market research. It also assists with market research. So anything you want to learn about the landscape of your industry, it's right there as well. You know, the size of the marketplace. Your general business operation management, it assists you with that. For example, small businesses, as we know, small businesses are good at their craft. But when it comes to managing the business, those skills are missing. So this system kind of helps them with that. So for example, if they need to do HR, disciplinary action, they need to do orientation, evaluation, any of those things, the system has that process in there for them as well. Cash flow management, which is a big piece, and Crystal plays a very critical role in that. As a matter of fact, Crystal and I, we have a contract with Mount SAC right now, Mount San Antonio College, where she teaches bookkeeping and payroll. And she's been doing a phenomenal job. And I just think bringing the Small Biz Pro system with what you do, Crystal and I partnering with all of you to do this, it will be a phenomenal thing. And that's why on the 17th, I'm thinking it's going to be great for us to be there and to take care of that.
What we might want to do is, if we're going to incorporate you, and I want to talk to you about this.
Yes.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Yes.
We can add a global logistics piece to this.
Yes.
That would prepare people to get involved in international trade.
Yes.
And there's also probably a trade finance
Yes.
component to this
Yes.
that we could add to this just to help people develop that international component. Also, what you're doing is important because your service orientation is greatly needed.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've found is that many NGOs in the which is like a nonprofit corporation.
Right.
They really could be more effective than they are. And anybody that can come there to help them enhance their service capacity is needed.
Right.
Okay, so particularly in the healthcare area, but healthcare and education are two areas where they definitely need.
And those are a combination where
Yeah.
I cross over.
Yeah,
Because
and it's a natural. It's a natural.
Without health, there's no wealth.
Right.
And just like here is being overlooked, I do chronic disease prevention.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same ailments are happening there on the continent. Diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, the same things.
Well, what you're doing is interesting. I'll tell you, it's at a different level.
Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly how this works.
Yeah.
I brought the Port of Durban here to meet with the Port of LA, and the goal was for them to sit down and talk about how they could do business with each other. Because believe it or not, the Port of LA does not have a lot of shipping routes to Africa, and so and they're interested in doing it.
Yeah.
And so, but the problem is going through all the rules and maritime rules
Logistics
and
and all of
regulations
that.
that it takes
Yeah.
to actually establish a route.
Right.
But so they both made presentations about what they were doing at their different ports. And you know what? The presentations were almost identical in terms of what they were doing and what their needs were.
Wow.
And you would
Wow.
think that the Port of LA would be more advanced, but
Right.
no.
Wow.
It was at the same
Same
level
level.
as the
Right.
Port of Durban.
Wow.
Okay. And so they kind of looked at each other and you begin to realize that what you're doing, and you say, I want to do this in Africa. We need it right here in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's no difference. Wherever we are, we have the same needs.
Exactly.
So what I did was I pulled up something, and I hope I didn't lose it.
Before we pull that
Yeah.
up, can we take a quick break? This is our
Please.
last break. We're going to go into the last segment of this. So for those of you who are listening, you want to participate in our conversation, 323-293-3375. This is the Business Zone with